I'm your host, Drew the Dragonslayer Thomas, coming to you live, both online and in person from the Norman Rockwell Museum. The mission of the museum is to illuminate the power of American illustration art to reflect and shape society and to advance the enduring values of kindness, respect, and social equity that's portrayed in Norman Rockwell's art. I'll begin by reading the land acknowledgement. It is with great gratitude and humility that we acknowledge that we are learning, speaking, and gathering on the ancestral homelands of the Mohican people, who are the indigenous peoples of this land on which the museum was built. Despite tremendous hardship in being forced from here, today their community resides in Wisconsin and is known as the Stockbridge-Muncie community. We pay honor and respect to their ancestors past and present as we commit to building a more inclusive and equitable space for all. So now I'd like to welcome you all to our Tuesday program, Meet the Artist series, where, as Mary said, this is our 7th episode, where we'll be talking to some of the most talented painters and illustrators of our generation, as well as you all, as well as everyone here in the audience, both online and in person, who we encourage to be a part of the conversation as well. Today, we are thrilled to be talking with Julie Bell. Julie will speak about her creative life, including her early work and inspirations, connections to bodybuilding, her process, and more. We're grouping the questions by theme, so we invite you all to ask relevant questions as she shares about each topic, and at the end, we'll open the floor for additional topics. Now I'd like to introduce Stephanie Habush Plunkett, the Deputy Director and Chief Curator of the NRM Museum. Welcome, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you very much, Drew, and welcome, Julie. We are so honored to have you here, and we're all huge fans of your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. I'm going to just provide a little background on Julie's incredible career, and then, of course, you'll be learning a great deal more as we go through her slides. But Julie is one of today's most in-demand fantasy artists. She studied art in college and worked briefly in children's book illustration, actually a field that she's returning to, and she'll say more about that. But while raising 2 young boys throughout the 1980s, she achieved great success in professional bodybuilding. In 1989, she was introduced to legendary illustrator Boris Vallejo, and she began modeling for him. Julie became inspired to return to illustration, and in 1992, one of her paintings appeared on the cover of Heavy Metal magazine. Since then, she's created advertisements for corporations, designed video game packaging art, and found work in the comic book industry, where she became the first woman to illustrate Conan the Barbarian for Marvel Comics, a very big deal. Julie and Boris married in 1994, and they continued to inspire each other, occasionally collaborating on paintings. Julie's work has been the focus of books such as Hard Curves, the fantasy art of Julie Bell, Soft as Steel, the art of Julie Bell, Titans, the heroic visions of Boris Vallejo and Julie Bell, The Fabulous Women of Boris Vallejo and Julie Bell, and Dreamland, the fantastic worlds of Boris Vallejo and Julie Bell. In addition, Julie and Boris publish an annual calendar featuring their work. In 2009, Julie received the Chesley Award for Lifetime Achievement. And in 2013, the Art Renewal Center awarded Julie the title of Living Master, which, as they have described, means that Julie has mastered all of the building blocks of great art, creating fully professional works of art as well as some identifiable masterpieces. She has successfully created a body of work which demonstrates accomplished facility in her craft that compares to the masters of prior centuries. Her work demonstrates strong, reliable, poetic sensibilities, which intertwine great universal subjects, powerful original compositions, and mastery over all aspects of the craft, working seamlessly to enhance the chosen subject. And of course, those of you who know her work know that this is certainly true. Within the Enchanted exhibition here at the Norman Rockwell Museum, which we hope you'll be able to visit, we are proud to feature artworks by Julie Bell, Boris Vallejo, and Julie's 2 sons, Anthony and David Palumbo. Her painting Pegasus Befriends the Muses is truly a showstopper. And I'm also really happy to report that the exhibition will travel after it closes here on October 31st to 2 other museum venues, including the Hunter Museum of American Art in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and the Flint Museum in Michigan. And we're so happy to have you all with us tonight, and really looking forward to hearing more about Julie's art. So with that, maybe it's just a good way to start out by asking you how you got involved in fantasy illustration.
Well, first, I just want to thank you for that really nice introduction. That was lovely. It's really beautiful.
Well deserved, my goodness.
And I'm really excited to be part of this exhibition and doing this webinar as well. But how I got started in fantasy illustration, I think I was always drawn to it even before I realized that's actually what it was. When I was younger, I really loved all the Art Nouveau images and the old illustrations from, you know, like the age of like Emcee and Kay Nielsen and Dulac. And those are totally, that's the fantasy that we all, you know, dream of when we, I think most fantasy artists have been inspired by artists from that particular period. But anyway, so I just always loved that kind of look, you know, with the designs and everything. And as you mentioned, I was involved in bodybuilding, and I, you know, have always loved seeing the human body, you know, being really beautiful and everything. And I think that, you know, fantasy art really works well with this kind of thing, because it's all about these larger than life, you know, heroic figures and self-empowerment. And, you know, fantasy art is, you know, even going way back hundreds of years, the art, you know, would show people being powerful, men and women. And so I think it's just a feeling, you know, how fantasy art works with this realism, but at the same time, it's with all this kind of elements that really attracted me. And then when I met Boris, of course, you know, that's what he did. And it just was so weirdly like meant to be because, you know, it just, then it was like, oh, here's a way to, you know, be ushered into this world that is, you know, just really direct. So it was just kind of an amazing thing to happen.
These photographs are absolutely amazing. How did you get involved in bodybuilding, and how long did you train? Was that a long career?
I was competing for 5 years. By the way, I need to correct one thing that you said in the introduction. You mentioned that I was a professional bodybuilder, and there's a distinction between professional and amateur, and I was not professional. I was a nationally ranked amateur bodybuilder. I had been in national level competitions, you know, but not at the professional level where there was money prizes were involved or anything like that. But yeah, so I was competing for 5 years, and I'd always been an athletic person all my life. I used to spend all my time when I was a kid outside climbing trees and doing things. I really hated gym class, even though I was very athletic, but I really didn't like being in a sport where people are yelling at you and pushing you and all that, and people are blowing whistles and everything. So I didn't like that kind of a thing, but I was very athletic in the sense that I just liked using my body that way. And I really loved also, I did a lot of ballet and other forms of dance when I was a kid, and even into as an adult, was still, you know, continuing studying ballet for a while there, and gymnastics as well. So just really loved movement and using, you know, understanding my body and having that feeling of using the body and seeing what it could do. And at the time that I got into actual bodybuilding, I never heard of bodybuilding as a thing, to tell you the truth. I just never thought about it. And the man that I was married to at the time had bought a home gym set for himself. And he didn't really end up using it that much, but I just really took right to it. And I had my young sons, they were really young at that time, like little babies. And I had thought that it would be really nice to exercise at home, you know, and just feel that powerful feeling again. And part of the home gym set had a chin-up bar. And I just, when I was a kid, I used to do chin-ups all the time. In fact, when I was in 2nd grade, I won a prize for doing the longest flex arm hang chin-ups. And I got actually a prize from the Presidential Medal of Physical Fitness or something like that. That was some kind of thing they did at the time. But anyway, because I had sort of had that technique throughout my childhood, when this chin-up bar showed up when I was 24 or something, I just kind of jumped up and started doing chin-ups, and I could do it right away. And my husband was like, "What?" Because he didn't know I could do that. And so it just, you know, was inspiring to me for him to think that was cool, and I wanted him to think I was cool. And so I just got more into working out, and it just became a real, you know, form of pleasure for me to be working out and exercising and lifting weights. And then at one point I joined a gym, and that's even more inspiring. You know, you're learning things from other people. And so it was a great time. I learned a lot about what I was capable of and how much more I could do than I thought I could do. You know, there were a lot of times that I was like, no way, I could never do that. And I really just did it. And then it just gave me so much confidence. It was a great experience.
Well, it's just amazing. And I'm sure that also tied into your awareness of how to draw and paint the human body, because your, you know, your awareness of anatomy is just extraordinary.
Well, it definitely helps. And I had been doing life drawing before I ever got into bodybuilding. So that was also a real fascination for me, because I knew about these muscles from doing my life drawing. And then when I was, you know, doing it with my own body that way and really experiencing my muscles in this different way, you know, yeah, definitely it really all came together. And also I have to say, being in the competitions, you know, you have to be on stage and you have to perform a routine and that kind of thing. And that went along with my dance background, but it really helped me to understand a lot about, like, and I understood a lot of this from my dance time too, but the visual lines that you create with your body and even the direction your eyes are looking and that kind of a thing. And I carry that into my paintings now. It's like a combination with bodybuilding and dance, you know, and it just, you know, you see these lines that you create that makes the symmetry and the dynamic poses so that they, you know, have a flow to them.
Mm-hmm.
Julie Bell, there's a question from the audience I think is good here. They asked, do you ever use yourself as a subject in your art?
Oh, for sure. Yes, I do. As Stephanie mentioned, I had modeled for Boris before I started making my own paintings. And, you know, it really, like, the models that we've worked with that are artists themselves tend to understand more easily the direction that this poses should be. Most of the models actually, even if they don't make art, they don't realize that they actually are artists at heart. And so it's just like a feeling that they have for it. But definitely when you know exactly what you want, it really just makes it come out so much faster and easier to be able to do it yourself. So I would have Boris photograph me if I wanted to do something that was of my own, you know, self in my own painting. And sometimes I photograph myself by setting a timer and then, you know, using the camera that way. Now with technology, it's really pretty easy to do that. So I'm learning more. I shouldn't say it's easy, because it was hard for me at first. I was like, I would set the timer and then I would run and do the pose. And then I would go back, and it was just one picture at a time. And then I found out that you can make it so that it just keeps flashing. So that was really good. Got really tired doing it the other way.
That's great.
Thank you.
Sure.
These are extraordinary. Are you your own model here on the left-hand side?
Yeah, now this is a painting that Boris did of me that was for a tarot card set that we were doing at the time. It's still kind of, it's an incomplete tarot set, and hopefully someday it will be completed. I don't know. It's been put on the way back burner, unfortunately, but there's so many other exciting things that we're doing. Can't do everything, but Yeah, and then the one on the right is not me in the painting. But it is a painting that we did together. But interestingly, the man in that painting is my son Anthony. He's the model for that. But the woman in the painting was a woman who actually the painting was commissioned by someone, and this was his girlfriend, or maybe just his friend. I don't know, but somebody who came with him to pose for his painting. So that was that.
Julie, someone from the audience asked, what was your favorite project that you've worked on with your husband?
Oh, wow. Favorite project that I've worked on with him. God, I couldn't possibly answer that. Honest. I mean, I could tell you a lot of things that I've just loved everything we've done together. Honestly, we've done so many things where, some of that were collaborations that were for a lot of advertising work, where we needed to be really fast, and it was just really exciting to do those things. And somewhere we would each do individual paintings and then both contribute to like our calendar. I love our calendar every year, where we each do our own paintings, and then we have one or two collaborations within that body of those paintings.
Julie, are you able to describe how the collaboration works? Do you come up with ideas together? Do you each work on separate parts? How does that?
I can definitely talk about it, but there's no description because there's no one way that it's done. Sometimes, let's just say it might be a job that one person feels more like they just immediately see it. They understand this is what we have to do, and then sketch out something, and then it'll kind of get bounced back and forth that way. And then, but sometimes, we both have different ideas, and we kind of look at both of the things and then figure out, which is best, or maybe combine them or do something completely different, so there's a lot of different reasons why it would be different. Like sometimes time is a factor. If let's just say there's a job that is a collaborative, like somebody has commissioned us to create a painting together, which happens a lot. They say, we want both of you to do this painting and both of you to sign it. And that's, by the way, that is how the ones that are collaborations are signed by both of us. And if they're not signed by both of us, then it's an individual painting. But, if somebody comes with that, and then maybe, Boris is really busy or I'm really busy and I can't put that much into it at that moment, he'll do part of it to start, and then I will jump in later, or the other way around. But the thing that's really fortunate is that we both each one of us can play all the parts. So it's very, it's great that we can, we don't do it exactly the same as each other, but I can do all the parts and he can do all the parts. And so if somebody wants to do one side of it or can't do it or whatever, then it doesn't really matter. We can both do that. And sometimes we've done jobs where we would work in separate canvases and then put them together digitally into a collaborative piece of art. And that's typically more likely to happen for, let's say, an advertising job where the time is really, fast. They want their jobs really fast, and they're very elaborate often. So it takes a lot of work, and you have to really just get it all done. So you might sometimes we'll have like 10 different canvases that we'll paint all of them, one at a time, and then put them together. But since it's two of us, and we can just, bounce it all around and get it all done.
That's great. Do you do the digital adaptation yourselves?
We do a lot of it. Neither one of us is really proficient as a digital artist. Seriously, I know my limitations, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to do digital art that looks, so if it's, a part of the job that I can do that's going to just look great, like the one, in fact, that you showed a second ago that I modeled for that was the tarot card. I actually did do some digital work on that one, because the tarot card was the woman and the sunflower. And I think that mountain behind her. And then the whole right part of the page with the bird and the volcano came from different paintings. And I brought them in. We needed to have this painting fest. And so I brought these pieces together and created a new piece of art out of them. So, and I think it's a pretty decent digital seamless job, but I wouldn't go into trying to actually paint digitally, you know, where I would create something new digitally. One thing that we do that's kind of interesting with digital art is a lot of the time we'll paint figures nude because that's just how we want to see the actual painting to be finished. The original will have the figure nude, and for our calendar, we need to have clothes on everybody, and so we will paint on a separate canvas with paint, not digitally, but we will paint, you know, bikinis and stuff, like different things for their clothes. So we've got this whole like paper doll canvas thing, and then bring it over and then digitally put it onto the figure, so that she'll have clothes. So each
Wow.
of us, yeah.
So interesting
Julie.
to hear about that process.
Yeah.
I agree. And that we actually do have a question from our in-person audience. If you want, you can ask it yourself, or I can ask it. All right.
Hi, I know you love horses quite a bit, but I was wondering what some of your other favorite animals are. And I understand that you're going to be doing artwork with animals in more in the future. And I'd like to know what kind of projects and things they are. I'm a retired elementary school teacher and I love animals myself.
Oh, yes, I love animals. I really do love animals. I feel like they, you know, they symbolize so many parts of myself, and I just can't seem to resist bringing them into my art. But I really do love wolves, and I mean, I love dogs. I really love, okay, I'm just going to say it. The only animals I'm not in love with are a lot of reptiles that I don't like. Not all reptiles. I like some reptiles, but I'm just not into snakes. I mean, I grew up in Southeast Texas, and I know snakes are really cool, and I do like them in art. But in real life, in Southeast Texas, the snakes were very scary to me. And so I did get a kind of a phobia of snakes, especially poisonous ones. But anyway, yeah, my wolves are very special to me. And I think it's just that I grew up, you know, with my dog, and I love my dog. I had a cat also, and I love my cat. I just have I think I'm more of a dog myself, you know. I'm not really sure, but I feel like I'm more of a dog or a wolf kind of person. So I am actually right now making a children's book. We'll show you pictures later on, that has a lot of animals in it, and they're, you know, they kind of represent a lot of our feelings and things like that. And it has a wild dog an African wild dog is the main character in the story. So I don't know how much you know about them, but they are really cool animals. Very cool.
What's your favorite fact about those animals?
About the wild dogs?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you know, always have a hard time picking favorite anything. I really do. People always say, what's your favorite something? And I'm like, it just makes my brain go like, ah. They sure are, like, they're just the way they look. They look so smart, and you know, they're cute as any dog, but at the same time they look like, you know, this is not a dog, you know, and it's not even like a wolf, but they are super wild looking, but they really just look so smart. I think I just love when I see an animal that looks extremely intelligent. It really makes me like, I love that.
It's such a beautiful piece. The light really revealing all the aspects of the fur. Just so beautifully done.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really fell in love with these wolves. If you show, there's a picture in there that's a book cover I did of a girl with a wolf. Do you see that in the slides? Is Rich?
Yeah, he just said, give me a sec.
Okay. Is it there? I hope it's there. Maybe I left it out.
I don't think we have it, he says.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Well,
Okay.
I was doing a lot of book covers for Tor Books, and they had me do a series of covers for them that involved wolves, and it was one wolf and a girl, and it was like her magic wolf kind of thing. And so anyway, the first cover I did for them, I used a wolf from a book, a picture in a book, and I based my wolf on that. And then that cover was really successful, and they wanted me to just take the whole series and do more. So actually Boris suggested that we go and take some pictures of real wolves. And oh, excuse me, hold on a second. I found a place just about an hour from here that was a wolf sanctuary, Lakota Wolf Sanctuary. And oh gosh, now I'm starting to hold on a second, sorry.
You're fine.
And so anyway, when we went there, I just took a lot of pictures of them, but they started doing this thing that you see in this photo, and I'd never seen this kind of thing before, but they all just started growling, and all their hair was up on the back of their neck and everything. And like, they looked crazy and wild before, but when they started doing this, it was like really amazing, because they started all just kind of swirling together and getting, like, they weren't acting like dogs. They were doing this other thing that was much, much wilder. And they were really just showing like some kind of dominance display, but it was at the same time very social. Like, it wasn't like angry or fighting. It was some kind of thing. It was a bond. It was really more like bonding, but it was definitely about where you are in the pack. And, you know, they were all making their positions clear. And I just, when that happened, it really was something that took maybe 1 minute from beginning to end. I don't even know if it was that long, but it just was like, it blew my mind. And it really just made me want to know everything about these wolves and what they were doing. And so I got a lot more into it at that point. And I that's when I started doing this. I did that painting that you just saw, because I just felt like I just want to do something where I can just spend all my time looking at these wolves and thinking about them and really honoring this wild thing that they do. Just was very exciting for me. So yeah, and this one that you're looking at with these horses, it's kind of a similar thing. Now, horses are prey animals, and they have a whole different kind of society from the wolves, which are predator animals. And so, you know, these two horses are having their conversation in their own way. And I just love seeing animals dealing with each other and having their connections with each other, and the way that they all communicate and have their societies and their, you know, their families. It's just something that, I don't know, I just feel like it makes us all the same. It makes us all the same part of, you know, this world. And, you know, the humans are another kind of animal. We're all in it together. So it's just such a deep feeling of understanding of all of us, you know.
Julie, I know we have a lot of slides on animals, but we do have another question from the online audience. If you want, you can ask it yourself if you like, or I could read it, either way. All right, so the question is, what advice do you have for a young person who aspires to be a professional illustrator, and how do you make it? And I know we talk about that later as well, so you can decide how much you want to elaborate on that now.
Yeah, well, I first I do have to say I'm 62 years old, and I started doing this when I was 30. So that was, if you are a mathematician like I'm not, 32 years ago. And it was very different then. We didn't have the internet, and we didn't have video games. We didn't have so many things back then that are existing now. It was more about publishing, and publishing with paper, you know, and going to New York City and meeting people and that kind of thing. And I still think that's important, but I think that the scene has changed so much now. And I really think you have more opportunities now in so many ways. I do have the opportunity myself to spend a lot of time being friends and, you know, talking to other illustrators who are younger than I am and seeing what they do. And first of all, there's just no you know, fast road in. It's like something that just to develop your skills, you got to expect that this is going to take you as long or longer than it would take you to become a surgeon or something seriously, because it's a good like 10 or 15 years really of putting in hard work before you really, I mean, not that you can't start getting work before that, but your skills change so much, you know, if you look back that much time. It really takes a very long time. And a lot of artists that start out, they expect they're just going to go to school for a year and they're going to be done. They're going to be ready to just jump out into the world, but they're going to be competing with people who have been doing it for decades. So they have to realize that, that when they're starting out, they're going to have to find the jobs, whatever jobs they can really, because, you know, it's a field with a lot of work going on. But also it is a competitive field. I do think that with the game art that's out now, and there's so many video games and so many things that are being done independently as well, that there are a lot more opportunities for young artists than there used to be. And there are definitely going to be some where you're going to feel that you're working a lot more than you should for the amount of money you're getting to begin with. And I don't think that's necessarily great, but at the same time, if you're doing this work, you're basically getting on the job training. You're kind of like still continuing your school by having that job. So I would say, at least to begin with, take some of those jobs and let that be part of your schooling, is just having that job, you know, doing these early jobs that really don't pay much, but they forced you to be in that pool of the other artists. You know, that's one of those things that a lot of young people do struggle with, is, you know, like taking jobs like that. And I don't know, it's not a great thing to be in that position, but at the same time, if you can consider it to be part of your school and you can afford to do it, it's a good training for you. And being an illustrator is a great training as an artist anyway, because you have to have skills to bring these images to life in a way that's gonna, you know, pass the test. And since it's gonna be for publication or for a commission, it's very different than just doing your own personal art that you're gonna put in a gallery and hope somebody buys it. Because with that, you can do whatever you want. And when it's illustration, you're basically fulfilling someone else's you know, specifications. And it really is kind of like, you know, really hard training, but it does give you skills that you can't just get just by doing whatever you feel like. I really think kind of forces you to work harder.
Thank you, Julie. That's a great answer. I know you mentioned game art. Maybe this would be a good time to transition, talk about some of the work for games that you've done.
Yeah, the one that you showed before with the guy with the sword and the skeleton. I don't know if you can see that, Rich. This is the first video game art that I did. I think his name was Axe Battler. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's not an Axe Battler. It couldn't be because he didn't have an axe. So I don't know what it is called. I don't remember. Anyway, it's something about Savage Land or something like that. But anyway, this was my very first video game cover that I ever got. And I was super excited to have this job offered to me because my sons loved video games. They were kids and they were really into that. And they were really excited that mom was doing a video game cover. And, you know, it just felt so great to have this job. So we actually bought a skeleton that we used and we still have today hanging in our basement. And her name is Miss Chicken Good. I don't know where that name came from. I can't remember. But anyway, that's the skeleton that you see there is Miss Chicken Good. And So yeah, and then these are some of other paintings I did with the actual covers on them, so you can see which ones they are. And I was just very proud of getting this work for video game covers. And it's really cool because now one of my sons does video game art for the games themselves digitally, and that's exciting. Yeah, just, it was another job. I mean, I didn't do anything really different with these, to create them or anything. But it was kind of interesting because at the time, some of them, like especially, I think with Super Valis, I can't remember which ones they were, but there were some of them that came in, like they would send you pictures of what they wanted, and it was just like these little, like 10 pixel blobs, and they'd say like, this is a robot and this is a monster, things like that. And so you got to be very creative with what these things looked like. You got to make up what these characters looked like, which I thought was really fun. And I mean, now the games are so elaborate and beautifully done, that they're there already. So if you were going to paint a cover like this, which I don't think they make the covers necessarily painted anymore, but if you were going to, you would have to make it look like those characters that are there. But at that time, it was fun to be able to make it up. I like that.
Julie, did you always draw? And I wonder if you could just say a little bit about your own training.
I did always draw. Yeah, I really always loved to draw. And all my life, since I was really little, I remember loving to draw, having notebooks of drawings and, wanting to mess with paint. I can remember to this day a time when I was in preschool and they gave us finger paint and I had this blue on my hands, and I just was in love with the marks that it made on the page. I wasn't even looking at making anything out of it. It just like the swirls and the fingerprints and just the way that it reacted with the paper. I just remember just looking at that forever and just running my hands through that paint. It was just a wonderful feeling. In fact, when I finished, everybody was gone out of the room. I don't know where they went. They all went to do something else. I was there like, ugh.
Julie, I think this is a good time to ask on this slide, in contrast to the last slide. Someone asked, do you paint women differently than male artists? And are you conscious of depicting them in different ways than a male artist might?
I am positive that that's the case. I don't see how it couldn't be that way. I definitely think that, Boris and I definitely approach, we're definitely different. I mean, he has a more masculine approach to whatever he draws and paints, and I have a more feminine approach. And it is so interesting how it comes out. It's such a good question, and it's really good to analyze these things with your own art as well. Because, it's like when I was trying to, in fact, do work, I was trying to paint dragons at one point, and I really always loved the dragons that Boris would paint. And the thing about them is they were so manly and really very macho and beastly and everything. And I wanted my dragons to have this kind of quality, but it kept coming out like feminine looking, and I just couldn't understand. And whenever I would try to make it look masculine, it just looked ridiculous. They just didn't have that kind of punch to them. And so until the point when Boris, I would be so upset. I would be like crying because my dragon just didn't have it, and he was like, just make your own dragons. Don't try to make my dragons. Your dragons, you have your own dragon, and just do that. And so it really was a kind of a turning point for me in my mind. It opened my mind to the idea that, when I was younger, I did used to make dragons that were mine, and I didn't compare them to anybody else's. I just did my own thing. And I'm just going to go back to, in my mind, when I was younger, like, 10 years old, and think about how I thought about dragons. And I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to develop it the way I would now with my skills that I have. And it was an amazing feeling. And it opened a door in my mind about, don't try to make my stuff be more Boris or more masculine or more anything other than what I am. And it really gave me something great to hold on to then. I felt like I have it in me now. And it was a very empowering moment.
Thank you. That's a very good message. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could just ask a little bit about the Conan the Barbarian on the last slide, because as I understand it, you were actually the first female artist to portray Conan on a cover.
Yeah.
I wondered, what was that like to get that assignment? And can you say a little bit about it?
It was an amazing thing too. Now, this is not the first Conan I did. The first one I did was this one where he's fighting with this metal horse. But the thing that it was just funny because the whole thing with Marvel, I was drawn to go there because somebody, I won't name them, in my past had told me I couldn't do it. And it's like, when somebody tells me I can't do something, that's my rocket fuel, you know, as long as it's safe and it's legal, then I want to do, if I feel like I want to do this thing, and if somebody tells me I can't do it, it really does push me to make me prove that person wrong. And so I thought, I'm going to go to Marvel Comics and I'm going to show them that. This is after I had been doing video games, and I had done video game covers, and I had done also my things for heavy metal. So I had something to show them. And so I did, and John Romita Sr. was the person that I met there, and he was so nice. And he really just took me in, and he took me into his office, and he was like, I think you should do Conan. And so he gave me that first job doing Conan cover. And then I did a couple more for them. And then I did some other, like, then I really got into the superheroes after that because they really liked the way I did those paintings. So.
Thank you for that story.
Yeah, I never got to hear how that person reacted, but I don't care.
You did it, that's for sure.
I did. So yeah,
what are we looking at here? Tell us a little bit about these.
Yeah, so this Iron Man on the right is the first one of the superheroes that I did. And then because they saw the Conan covers and they really liked the way I did the metal, and they had decided they were going to start doing trading cards. So they thought it would be cool to have have me do some of the trading cards with the metal characters to begin with. And so they had me do Iron Man and Silver Surfer, and then they also had me do one of Psylocke, which isn't metal, but I think they liked the way I painted women. So then they liked those, and it just kind of took off from there. And I did a whole bunch of stuff for Marvel after that. And I did a whole set of Marvel masterpieces for them, which Boris actually also came in, and he had never really been doing superheroes. He had worked with, I don't know if he had worked with Marvel. He had done other comic stuff that was like horror comics in his past, but he wasn't really involved with Marvel as comic art at that time, or comic characters at that time, like superheroes. So anyway, that was fun because that was one of our first big joint projects where he did half the set and I did half of the set. And so it was a lot. It was like 100, and I don't know how many there were in the set. It was over 100 altogether. So, and it took, a long time to do it and everything, but it was a great thing and I loved it. And this one of the X-women in the middle that you see there. See, that's the thing. I think that what they like is like, I like power and strength in a woman. And, I also think delicate and graceful and everything is really great too. But I think the feeling of empowerment in anybody is, a good thing. And I think that they feel my sense of my own expression of that kind of empowerment in the way that I paint the women. And when you were asking about the difference between the way I paint women and maybe other male artists, I'm thinking about that more than I'm thinking about them as someone to be attracted to. I'm thinking more about them as their own self, And so it was just really fun to do this this particular painting here.
Thank you, Julie. I just want to take a moment and check in with the in-person audience. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? Looks like we have a question. Just give me 1 second here.
Sure.
Do you have like a studio?
Yes, I do. I mean, the studio that I paint in is here in our house. And I share that studio with Boris. We each have half the room, except my half is about 3/4 of the room. So, you know, my paintings are big. But he's very generous with his space. He doesn't mind. So, yeah, we share our studio, and you know, and we also have a photo studio that we use to shoot reference of models when we have models here. And I also shoot at an outside studio. I shoot photos at a studio away from here where they have more space, because our photo studio isn't that big.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think we're all set to move on. If we have any other questions. Oh, we have another in-person question. Just give me a sec here. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just curious to hear from Julie about what was your breakthrough moment as an artist where, you know, you had this dream, you had this talent. When was your moment where you're like, wow, I've really made it. I'm an artist. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. When did that moment come, and what was it like for you personally?
Well, I think it was an ongoing thing, because the first thing I ever had that was, you know, published it out to the big world and everything was the first heavy metal cover that I did. And that was amazing for me, because it was one of the first paintings I did where I really put a serious effort into it. And so that was a really big deal for me. But it's interesting how, and I think a lot of people might have this experience when they are doing something like, you know, whatever it is that they're going to achieve, is that after you achieve a thing like that, it's not like it's not a big deal, but you realize once you've gotten there that you're not like set for life now. It's just like, that's one thing you did, and now you have to do another thing and another thing. And so all the things that I've done along the way have just added to that feeling of that. You know, I remember hearing once that Elvis Presley used to always say to himself, even like for his whole life, he said, well, if this singing thing doesn't work, I'll just have to go back to driving trucks, I guess. I could always do that, you know. So it's like, I think a lot of people, you know, they might just kind of feel like, you know, even though they see it working, there's no guarantee that anything's gonna ever, like, you're not set for life or anything. You just have to continue. So there's never this feeling like I'm there and that's it. And, you know, I mean, I do feel a lot of confidence and, you know, security that I've established a position that people like what I'm doing and that kind of thing. But I don't know. I think it's part of my nature that I allow, I definitely don't, I do have my own insecurities, and I allow those insecurities to be part of my rocket fuel, you know, because I want that, it's kind of like keeping that eye of the tiger, you know, from like Rocky, you know, you've got to stay hungry, and you've got to always feel like that you're trying to achieve something if you want to keep growing and going forward.
Thank you.
Julie, these paintings are gorgeous. Were these done for your personal
Yeah.
work, or were they assignments?
Yeah, this one here is my is one that's for my personal children's book that I'm working on right now.
Mm.
And this is our main character. His name is Wild Dog. So yeah, he's gonna be having his little story there. So yeah, the thing is that I had done a bunch of paintings just for myself that weren't really intended to be part of a story. But after I got a whole bunch of them, you know, I had done a whole bunch of them, and a friend of mine who's a writer, Sherry Ross is her name, she actually said to me, Julie, you know, you should take these and put them together, and they feel to me like they belong in the same world. And like these, I know there's a story in here with these pictures that you've done already. And so I had about like 12 or 15 at the time. I think it was maybe just 12. I'm not sure. But, when she said that, I just thought, well, gosh, that is a cool idea. I love that idea, but I didn't have any idea of what the story would be. And then it was just really amazing that not too long after that, I actually got an email from a publisher. It was an independent publisher that was just starting, and now they're actually doing really fine and, making books and everything. And they wanted to know if I would be interested in making a children's book that I would write that would have art that was kind of really more psychedelic and, not typical stuff that you see right now. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is just like, what? And so I was like, I got to write that story now, And so I got really excited, and so I just put all the pictures out in front of me, and I left them for like weeks, and I just looked at them all together, like every day I would see all these pictures together. And then when I would be out going, like I walk my dogs every day. And so I'd be out walking and I would just be thinking about my story. And it just, all of a sudden, it just all came together. And I realized this is the story. And it's so great. It's about the wild dog. And so then after I had the story understood in my mind and in my heart, then I started making new pieces of art that would, tie it together. There were places where it needed to have things that tie it together. So I'm pretty close to finishing everything now. And so it's really exciting.
That's exciting. Is that the first book that you've actually written yourself?
It is. Yeah. Now I did illustrate the book for Sherry Ross, The Return of the Vine Tropes, that she wrote. She's the one I was just mentioning before. And that was a lot of fun to illustrate her story. And it wasn't an illustrated storybook. Like mine's a storybook where there's like a picture on each page. Hers was more of like a children's novel. And it had, I think we had 12 paintings in there. I can't remember exactly, but I think it was about 12 paintings. But it's a really cool story that she wrote, but it's like a whole novel, and it's just like a whole world that she's created there. So yeah, so she's been a really good friend to me. Sorry.
Demonstrate.
Oops, the sound got messed up.
I'm sorry. Did you want to demonstrate some of the paintings that you had?
I'm not hearing it.
1 second.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, perfect. Did you? I was just asking if you wanted to demonstrate some of the paintings that you had in person.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of neat because, so now here's another one that's from my storybook. That's one that I did have to create to fill in one of the gaps. I don't know how well you can see this.
We can see it.
It's one of the characters, and this painting is in progress. It's not finished yet, but it's an egret that helps Wild Dog in his adventure.
That looks amazing.
Oh, thank you. It's fun to work this way where, if it's for my own storybook, it really is so exciting to be making this art. I'm actually I can't show you this right now because it's too big, but I'm making the cover for it, and I'm going to be painting it at 4 foot by 5 foot just because I want to make this giant painting. It'll be really fun.
Yeah.
And this is a painting that's even less finished than the one that you just saw. And this is crazy. This is a wild dog, and he's really, really happy right now. So,
Wonderful.
but this is how I start a lot of the paintings, is that I just kind of like throw it down there, just like if you were going to make pottery or something. You just sort of start with your lump and you throw it down and shape it and then bring it together. And I think that when I start a painting that way, where I just kind of let it out just to begin with, it really, to me, it has a lot of emotion when I do that. So I like that. And then bring in more discipline to it as it goes along, make it more finished.
Thank you.
I have some other paintings, but they're not from my storybook or anything. So yeah.
That's very interesting to see how they look so beautiful when they're just halfway done. Just in a different way.
Thank you. This is a painting I did of my daughter-in-law, Dina, who is a very beautiful person. And I just really wanted to do a painting of her. I love the idea of portrait. I've always loved portraits. Even when I was like in high school, would do portraits of people in the school. And I remember some of my teachers having me do portraits of other teachers for presents for them and things like that. But this one, I thought it would be, I just started getting into this idea of doing something with flamingos also. And so I thought, it'd be so great to bring it together and do the portrait with the flamingos. So yeah, I just wanted this really peaceful feeling. I wanted you to feel like you're there, and you can feel the fabric, and you can feel the softness of everything. And just like, even though, you wouldn't really just sit around with flamingos like that, for different reasons, obviously. It might be kind of, I don't know. But anyway, I think it just looks like a very peaceful and clean environment to me. It feels good to look at that.
Julie, someone from our online audience asks, can you discuss your preference for hyperrealism?
Yeah, I do. I love detail. I enjoy very much. I think there's a certain part of my brain that just gets a physical pleasure from painting details. And that's one thing when I'm painting the wolves or anything, I'm painting a person's face or their skin. I enjoy that feeling of really making that detail happen. And so I actually have to watch myself that I don't, overdo that, because I feel for myself in my own style of working, I don't want the painting to look like an actual photograph. I want it to have some photographic sense to it, that it's very realistic, but I don't want you to look at it and literally think it's a photograph, because to me, it's like the photograph would already be beautiful. And so the painting needs to be more than a photograph for me. So that's one reason I started bringing more of the fantastic kind of elements into the painting with the more photographic looking rendering of the figures. Thank
you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it makes it a little bit more alive in a way for me, because then it's like you feel like it's like more breathing or something.
Julie, do you do preliminary drawings, or are you working directly on your canvases? This is just amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do. Sometimes it depends, it's different ways. Like sometimes I start like the way I did with this one with the dog, where I just jump right into paint. And I do that when I paint also figures from life. When I paint people from life, I will just go right into paint. I don't want to draw it first. This particular one, I used a photograph to work from. These girls were playing in their yard in my neighborhood several years before I painted it. I actually just took this picture with my phone. I took several pictures of them with my phone, and I just had them in my phone for a long time. And every time I would come across that picture, I was just struck by how much I loved seeing them in the tree. And I think it had to do with me climbing trees when I was younger, and they were playing some kind of imagination game, and they called themselves Nature Girls, and that was their team was the Nature Girls. And I did that exact same kind of stuff. I'm sure many of you did, hopefully all of you, because it's an awesome thing to do. We should all be doing it every day now. But going into your imaginary world is such a great thing. And I just really wanted to get the feeling of that in this. And I also really loved how these girls, and I know them personally too, I know their moms and their families, and these girls have really been encouraged to be exactly who they are, which to me is really important, that people be encouraged to do that. And I like it, like you can see that in them, that they are allowed to be themselves and just do their thing. And I just wanted to get that feeling. To me, that's just really powerful. They're little kids, but they have power because they know who they are. And these kids are loved and have this power of that kind of security in themselves. I just love that.
Definitely comes through.
Thank you. This painting I did really just because I wanted to. This model is a woman named Jenna that is one of my favorite models that I've worked with, because she's just done so much work with me. And she's just got she's very expressive with the way she moves. And so it's funny because the first day that she came to model for me, I only was able to get a very few, just the smallest handful of pictures of her for some reason. I don't remember what happened. Something happened with the pictures that I shot. Something happened to the images that got messed up. And so I only had this little handful of them, but almost all of the images were just so great. And she just really inspired me. So I thought both of the women in this painting are her. But I just thought, I just want to just do this painting because I just love these pictures of her so much. And so I thought that it was neat to think of like, see, how was it? It was like past, present, and future. And like the woman who's looking out, of course, is looking into the future, and the one who's looking down is looking into the past. And then this dragon that they're riding on is the present, and it's just moving through the present. So it was just this kind of feeling of something symbolic going on, but also with a real classic feeling to it, but also not classic, because all this, the way it's so designy and all that, very loose in the background. And with that dragon, I wanted that to be more modern and more just kind of abstract, spontaneous.
Julie, when you started out in the field of fantasy illustration, were there very many women painters? And do you find that many more women are entering the field now?
I don't know how many there were at the time. I don't think there were nearly as many as there are now. I'll say that for sure. There weren't as many for sure. Now there definitely are. I feel like the young women that are right now are really so much more confident and forward thinking and powerful in themselves than we were when I was younger. And it's just great. I love that. And yeah, definitely, the women like in the game industry and, illustration for publishing and that kind of thing. I see a lot of women art directors that are very powerful people that are friends of mine. So I just think it's become more about like, your skills in that. And I mean, I think it was that to begin with, but I think, women are just more out there with it and more confident. And I think also just, there's more people. I feel like maybe it's just me in the world that I'm in, but I feel like that people are seeing this kind of art as something they can have a career in. It has more of a reality to it. I remember when I was like in high school or college studying art, I only knew artists as art teachers. I really didn't know anybody who ever did illustration as their living or, had a job doing art as a living at all. Not one single person. I had one art teacher that sold his art in galleries, and that was the closest it came to that. And that really wasn't, necessarily what I was thinking of doing. I really wanted to do illustration. And until I met Boris, he was the first person I ever met that was an actual artist for his career and made a living that way. And so at that time, when I did meet him, it just brought the whole thing as a reality to me. And now it wasn't such a mysterious world. And I think that because now you have the internet and people are having discussions online and, there's just so much more information for people to have that they can see. They see this as like a world you can be in. It's just a thing that you can do. You just have to do the work and meet the people. And that's basically the formula. Do the work, meet the people, keep doing it more and more. So this painting that we're looking at here is it was a privately commissioned portrait of the couple that you see here, and they came and modeled for me. And it was actually her concept to do a mermaid with the dolphins and well, she was thinking dolphins. She was thinking more like just underwater creatures. And I kind of thought, I kind of like the idea of just dolphins. But I do like the idea of if we had some octopus in there or something too. I'll get to that next time. But yeah, she loves mermaids. And so she wanted to be a mermaid. And don't we all love I love mermaids too. I spent so much of my childhood in the water outside and just imagining being a mermaid. So I think, you know, it's fun to do these commissions, these private commissions for people, the portraits that you feel like you really are kind of making someone's dream come true. And I just love that. I really enjoy that a lot.
That's got to be fulfilling for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now this painting is, again, this model I mentioned before. And she has such a rock and roll spirit to her. And I just felt like I want to do a painting that's like when I was a kid in the 70s. And, you know, this, I don't know, I keep thinking of the song Layla by Eric Clapton when I see this. You know, that part, that's the slow part in the music. And it's like, and then it just blasts in and everything. But I just feel like this painting feels like rock and roll as a painting to me. So that's what I was thinking. And this painting, I just had this vision actually one day of a cloud of black leopards and thought, wow, I got to do that. I have to think of it like this painting is called A Cloud of Black Leopards. And so it's like she's floating in on this cloud of black leopards. And I really enjoy creating these kind of backgrounds that you're seeing here, where it looks realistic, but it's like, what are those things? How is that? That's it. I don't know. To me, it feels like realistic, but not, you know, and I just really like that, where you can't define why does it feel realistic when it doesn't look anything realistic, you know, and part of it does, but I don't know. And then here we have the one that's hanging in your Norman Rockwell Museum. This was one that I painted really just, I started this painting just because I wanted to do a really large fantasy painting. That this painting's 4 foot by 5 foot. And I really wanted to do it like if it was going to be hanging in a museum or something, and it was fantasy, you know, like people kind of, you know, like for the last, I think you've mentioned it in some of the things about your show, how in the last few decades, the world of fantasy art has kind of been looked upon as a little bit less than, you know, real art or something. And I feel like, you know, why? Look at what, you know, the Renaissance painters were doing and that kind of thing. And it's like, there was so much fantasy art. It's like a lot of it's religious, but there's like just it's all this flying people and, you know, all kinds of fantastic things going on. And I thought, I want to bring Pegasus here and get some mythology here and do something that just, you know, has this stylized dragon. You know, it's not like a regular dragon that you see, it's my dragon. I want to do it on a grand scale so that it really becomes something bigger and give it like real respect as something that's real art. So I thought, if you want to see it that way, you got to make it. That's all there is. So you can't
Julie,
just wish for it.
Sorry to interrupt. We have a question from the in-person audience, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Give me a second here.
Thank you. And congratulations, Julie, on an amazing career and a wonderful, beautiful family of talent that you have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I was studying Pegasus in person. It's at the here, and it's just amazing in person. And I finally got to see it. And I was doing a color study, trying to figure out your composition and how you lay out, how you think about and design what you're going to do. And I was just completely overwhelmed. I was able to get as far as like the line, like how the lines flow, like her knee, like her arm is flowing into the wing, is flowing into the dragon, it's flowing into the scarf. And I could see that design. I hope I could see that. But how do you ultimately think about laying out the design and how each element is going to be on the canvas? I'm just dying to know. Thank you.
You know, it's really a visceral thing. It's a feeling. It's an actual feeling that I have. And it really goes back to my days of being involved with dance. And I literally feel like I'm like sweeping around on that. Like I will make, like I like to do this big movements and then take a picture with my phone. Now make it small. Now go in there as it's small and think of it as a more literal composition, and like, how do these things work together? And then just start bringing it together that way. It's something that, you know, I start large and then bring it small. And then once I get it so that if I can see it small and that composition still holds. Also, if you have it and you turn it on its side and you turn it upside down, it should still look good. You know, if it looks good from all different directions, then your composition is solid, I feel. So,
Julie,
but
that's
yeah.
what Rockwell said too, because he used to look at his compositions in a mirror, kind of backwards. And if they were working that way, he knew they were pretty sound.
Yeah, and you know, it's so like we do this, like you use your phone, you take a picture of it, and then, you know, you can like definitely turning it on its side or turning it upside down or backwards, like you're saying, reverse, any of those things, it really definitely makes it where you can see if your composition is lacking somewhere or if it's just something's disturbing going on.
Tyler Jacobson and Anna Dittman, they also said that. So hope everybody's, the young artists are getting that. That's a big one.
Good. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Thank you.
using
That was
your
a great
phone
question.
is great help. Yeah, it is good.
Just as our speaker, our audience member just said, it really is a painting that just envelops you when you stand before it, and it's just attracted so much attention in the gallery.
Oh, that really makes me happy. Thank you so much for saying that. And I'm just really, really glad that it's being shown there so that, you know, people are saying that. It makes me feel great. It makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. So good.
Incredible.
Thank you. And this is a painting of my other daughter-in-law, Noni, and she's wearing a robe that her mother gave her that's just really pretty. And she's just, she's an artist herself, and she's super sensitive, sweet person. And I just really wanted to do a beautiful painting of her. And so I had her, you know, with the robe, so that with this texture and, you know, just sitting in a light and kind of daydreaming. I just wanted a feeling of relaxation and daydreaming in this painting. I just really wanted to bring the viewer there so that you could feel what she's feeling when you look at this.
Beautiful, truly
Thank
filled
you.
with emotion. Julie, what is it like to know that your sons are such accomplished artists, and do you all talk about art all the time?
We do talk about art, you know, all the time. I mean, we talk about a lot of things, but we talk about art all the time too. And we definitely all really run things past each other, and, you know, like, well, I do that more with them. They, you know, I love to see what they're doing, but they want to do their own thing more. So, but I definitely like to get their opinion about what I'm doing on certain things. And, you know, it's just great. And all of our friends are artists. We all share friends together. And so it's a wonderful thing. It's like beyond my wildest dreams that I have this kind of life and that my sons do as well. It's really beyond my dreams.
It's wonderful.
So, yeah.
I think a good question for, you know, as we start to wind down, and from our online audience asks, would you like to see more of your work and works of others being shown in fine art galleries?
Yeah, I would. You know, I'm working with a gallery in New York right now, Ray's Gallery, and I really like working with them. And I used to have an idea that I wanted to be in a lot of different galleries, and now I've kind of gotten to where I'm not feeling like that same way anymore. I'm not really sure, but I really like working with Ray's Gallery. But as far as like to see more, I would like to see more galleries for sure taking fantasy art more seriously, because it is such a beautiful thing, and there's such a high level of skill, and there is a lot of it being done now that's just like insane. It's so good. And I think that it's really a shame that there's certain parts of the art establishment that really have, like that's just kind of how markets work. They kind of control like what's good and what's not. And I just don't think it's always based. I think a lot of times it's not based on what's really popular necessarily, or even what's good, but it's based on some other thing it's like their marketing. They're the genius marketing people. If those marketing people decided to put their marketing skills into fantasy art, it would be valued the same way as, these other things that are much higher values. So it's just one of those things. I don't know how that world works, of that really high finance and all that, because that's just not what I think about all day. So I'm thinking about unicorns and wolves and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for them, they're good at that. That's what they do. So more power to them. But I mean, it would be really cool if, and I do see more galleries looking more seriously at fantasy art and having it come into what they're doing. And especially because like now the movies and things that are being done, Marvel and all these fantasy movies and things that are being done, and Game of Thrones and all that stuff, that's making a lot of money. And I think that a lot of that comes down to money. What's making money? So they're seeing that this stuff is making money. And so that's kind of a lot of what drives it too. Plus, a lot of the people who were younger and grew up loving this kind of stuff are now older and in power and have the money to make, decisions. So, sorry.
Well, it has been such a pleasure and an honor to speak to you this evening and to have your work on view. So thank you for all the support you've given to the exhibition, and we'll look forward to seeing more as you continue to make these incredible masterpieces.
Well, thank you. And Stephanie, I got to say also, thank you for telling us about Aunt Agnes. Hey, Aunt Agnes. It's Stephanie's Aunt Agnes.
Oh, she is going to faint.
Hugs for you, Aunt Agnes.
That's so sweet. Thank you very much. Well, she's, I know, enjoying every word.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you for that.
On top of that, I just want to also say thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you and hearing about your artwork. So.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you so much. And it was really nice. You guys have made it so much fun. And also thanks to everybody who asked questions, because it really is great to hear from you and know what you're interested in hearing about. I really love that.
Great questions, everybody. And we thank everyone for joining us.
We have some ending slides, but I also just want to say thank everyone, all of you for being here. There's been about 550 people here across all our platforms. I want to thank you all for making this a great discussion.
Thank you.
Our next program will be with Gary Gianni on August 24th at 5:30 p.m. And we also have the Fall Symposium, Enchanted Mythology and Fairy Tales, from October 22nd to the 23rd. We also have The Magic of Trees Plain Air with Dan Howe on Saturday, August 21st from 1 to 4 p.m. And then we'll have the 3rd annual Art of Brewing Festival. That will be super fun. Dean McKeever will be there. He's a really cool guy on Saturday, August 21st. And then on Wednesday, August 25th, we'll have Raiders of the Lost Ark, which will also be very fun. And then we have our exhibit, Enchanted, A History of Fantasy Illustration, that will be on view through October 31st, as well as the Land of Enchantment. If you want to support this work, last slide. If you want to support this work, feel free to become a member on nrm.org/support. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next time.